We came up with this hair-burning idea of building a ship. And what I'm going to show you over the next 15 minutes is the culmination of a dream starting to happen. So we call it the Luna Project. We founded the Colonial Seaport Foundation with the purpose of building a ship. So the Colonial Seaport Foundation's responsibility is that building and construction of this ship and providing maritime history interpretation to the community. This is a project that I have a great deal of passion over. Unfortunately, we don't make a whole lot of money by doing these passionate projects, so we have to work on a regular basis to make enough money to be able to pursue these passions. I'm going to tell you a little story, a little poem that was taught to me a number of years ago. There once was a teacher whose principal feature was hidden in quite an odd way. When students by millions and possibly zillions surrounded him all of the day. When finally seen by a scholarly dean and asked how he managed this deed, he held up 3 fingers and said, "All you swingers need only follow my lead. To rise from a zero to a big campus hero, to answer 3 questions you'll strive. Where are we going? How will we get there? And how will we know we've arrived?" And so everything that I do in life, I try to follow that little mantra. So what I'm going to do in the next few minutes is try and give you an idea of where we're going, what we're going to have to do to get there, and how we're going to know when we've gotten there. And I want to thank all of you again for taking time out of your schedule to come hear this story. The Luna Project, the annual vision of the Luna Project is what I'm most excited about, because it gives us something beyond just being a sail training vessel. We have a program that will encompass the entire year. It starts out with the school year as a merchant vessel. The merchant vessel will travel around the local communities, Portsmouth, Hampton, Norfolk, Chesapeake, Yorktown, Cape Charles possibly, Suffolk, Smithfield possibly. We're still trying to identify targets of opportunity, if you will. And we'll spend up to 3 weeks in each one of the ports. And over that 3-week period, we'll have 3rd through 5th grade students come to the ship for a living history lesson with people like me. I'll show you a little bit more about that. Then, during the summer, we're going to provide a complete seaport experience. So it's more than just a ship. The Colonial Seaport Foundation has put together more than just a ship. Although the ship's exciting, we also have a custom house that can be loaded onto a trailer and moved to a location that we're doing a festival. So when we go to a festival, not only will it be the ship, it will be a portable custom house with a customs officer and Blackbeard's crew with a pirate encampment, depending on what event we're doing. We just completed, and I'll show you this in a few minutes, so I'm not going to get ahead of myself. Now, what do I mean by a complete seaport experience? Last year, at the 400th anniversary of Hampton, our custom house made a debut. It's an 8x10 wooden structure that replicates the look and feel of a custom house. And on the back wall over here, I have a couple of picture panels up, which we can talk about after the presentation. There's a photo of a custom house that's still in existence up in Oxford, Maryland. It's very plain, but it really looks great on the waterfront. And it adds to the experience, because that's what we're trying to recreate. And then, of course, we're building the ship. Now, this is an artist rendering that was done by one of the curators up at the Delftaville Maritime Museum of what the Luna will look like when she's complete. It's an 18th century Bermudan sloop, which would have been characteristic of the types of vessels that we have in the Hampton Roads area 300 years ago. Currently, there is no, this is kind of our niche market, there is no replica vessels of the 18th century in Hampton Roads. We have the Godspeed, the Discovery, and the Susan Constant in Jamestown. We have the schooner Virginia in Norfolk. And that leaves a 150-year gap in replica vessels for our area. So we think this is a good niche market for us. Part of our education programming, we do seamanship demonstrations of 18th century seamanship. That's me over here doing a presentation down at the Museum of the Albemarle. 18th century music, mercantilism, and trade in the 18th century, what it was like to do business. Some sociology education or games. How did sailors in the 18th century passed time? How did they get along with other people on board ship? A lot of sailors that were aboard ships didn't know each other in the day. They possibly didn't even speak the same language, so the only way that they could communicate was by playing games together, because everybody could understand that. But we try to provide an educational experience that you can't get anywhere else. The Luna is actually a 1971 Rossboro ketch, before we get into that. We're not building her from scratch. She's a 40-year-old boat. We found her in St. Augustine, Florida, and were able to buy her for $1.
Oh my.
Cost us $8,000 to ship her up here to Virginia. And this was in 2007, November of 2007. So she has 40-year-old wood on board, and it smells like an old wooden boat. The way we're doing the construction is we're going to wrap her in fiberglass, so the exterior will be low maintenance. We're not going to have to haul her out and completely recaulk the seams every year. So the goal of the project is to create a low maintenance vessel that has a minimum cost for annual operations, but will provide the same level of experience to the kids. So anything that you see will look like an 18th century vessel, except for where the Coast Guard says you have to do this a certain way. But we'll cover that up with something that looks 18th century. And then down below will be an old wooden ship, so it'll smell like an old wooden ship. And her hold will be outfitted with shelving to hold cotton, sugar, tobacco, those things that would have been shipped in the 18th century for trade. And that way when the kids come down, we'll have a table in the center of the hold that will hold up to 12 students. And they'll even smell the environment that it would have been like 300 years ago. So our goal is to really create the experience as opposed to just doing a textbook presentation. When we found the Luna back in the back on the right-hand side over there, up in the top left-hand corner, I'll have my model. That's what the Luna looked like in 2007 when we found her down at St. Augustine. She'd been neglected for about 5 years. The owner had spent no time on board. She was covered in cormorant poop. The windows were knocked out. The interior was in bad shape, but all the planking was in very good shape, which is our shipwright, Chip Colonial, went down and looked at her and said, this is what we need, and we can work with this. So you'll see here in a few minutes a little bit more. First I want to talk about the custom house, because this is part of that Seaport experience. This is an inside view of what the customs house looked like. It's very sparse, but it was part of trade because any goods coming to the Hampton Roads area had to go through Hampton, Virginia, which was the site of the first customs house in 1710. So there were a number of characters that worked at that custom house, and that was an employment of the King of England. And some of them were good guys, and some of them were slimy. Sorry to tell you this, Governor, but some of your customs officers would actually skim off the top, if you will. So
I got part of it.
Right, we finished doing that. Keep hitting the button. We finished the customs house last year in time for the 400th anniversary.